welcome to Mentor Forge Podcast. Cartwright Morris here, your host. Excited to have you. Mentor Forge is about the growth and advancement of young professional men. So, yeah, how do I do that? How do I grow, advance, help young professional men step into more of who they are? First is I have my coaching. I do that, which I have a great opportunity to do that through Calvert and Associates here in Birmingham. You can go to calvertandassociates.com, or you can click on schedule a session on my website, mentorforge.com. And then also I do it through my courses. I've created 6 weeks of content it's called the Essentials of Life and Career Building for the Young Professional. This is a lot of my experience, a lot of my knowledge that I've gained, just seeing what successful people do, what people did well in their 20s and 30s that led to a lifetime of lasting success and a meaningful life. So, and then lastly is through my content. I'm giving a recap today. I'm excited to share what I have through my interview, and I break down this on my website. If you just go to my website, click guest interviews, and you'll see the breakdown, all my notes, and I love the questions at the end of it that I put on my website that you should check out. It's really questions just to ask yourself in the interview, and I'll get to that at the end. But also, I'm on YouTube now, as well as Spotify and Apple Podcast. So please rate, review, give me a follow. Let's go to today's recap. So today's recap is with Grant Skeldon interview. You check out more about Grant at grantskeldon.com. And he's with Q Ideas in Nashville, and it's really cool what they're doing. Please check out their website. I have all those links in the show notes on my website, mentorforge.com/guest interviews. So please check that out. First off, I'm a big fan of Grant's. Heard him mention this, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, speak in Birmingham to a group of older men in the city, and I was like the one young guy, and I mentioned that kind of beginning. But Grant really, he kind of, his big message is, I think of it as bridge building, of crossing the bridge between generations. And he got started because he was kind of the millennial guy to the baby boomers and helping baby boomers, consulting them, how to help them bring along. And the big key word that he uses is discipleship. And we get into that pretty quick. Move from minute 3, where he talks about that, to then get into minute 7. Second 50, he, of course, talks about Jesus and how really where we're at with Christianity is all hinged upon Jesus discipling 12 men. Period. The end. Salvation to the world would still be offered if he didn't disciple those guys, but would it have spread? Obviously, 1, with the power of the Holy Spirit, but 2, the relational building, the sharing of the mission, bringing them along. And, I think that's something really fascinating. Someone who's been part of church and ministry for most of his life. And, I think there's a lot of great churches and ministries I've been a part of that have a great mission. I wouldn't have been a part. But I think there's always that missing part, I think, with the church as a whole, is like to really carry that great mission that's just as equal, if not more, are we building great people along the way to carry that mission? And I think the mission sometimes goes ahead of the people, and Jesus never modeled that. Grant talked about, I think, what was a quote I have on my site? It said, salvation in the world hinges on Jesus discipling those 12 guys. It's fascinating. In really just the value of discipleship, mentoring, bringing people along, whether that's in business, in church, showing intentionality in their growth. He kind of hit on this, which was really interesting, was he talked about that, a lot of, he gets to this later, and I guess, I'll talk about that later, but he talked about his first big speaking engagement later in the episode, and how most people, older people, successful people, will wait. They'll wait for younger people to be mature to mentor and disciple them, and like how that's just, for lack of a better term, ass backwards. That's just not how it works. And waiting around for, I think for the younger people, we wait around for the mentor. We wait around for someone to notice us and want to put their arm around and help us, instead of doing and then that attracting them. But conversely, in the same way that older people, they're waiting for us to mature to then actually engage. So, yeah, it was a topic that I just kind of wanted to keep hitting on. So we hit on that for the first really 9 to 10 minutes of the interview. And then, of course, we get to the my common question that I just always love kicking off the interview. What are your first early influences? Which is really fascinating, especially a guy who's so strong in his faith and really is just such conviction for the gospel. He didn't grow up a Christian, became a Christian in high school, which is, that's pretty common in a lot of ways when it comes to somebody who's got such a strong mission right now. We're seeing many people who are second, third generation Christian, grew up Christian family that are no longer in the faith. Don't get me wrong, don't hear that I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but I was just fascinated that his early influences, not many Christian influence until later in his teen years. So anyway, but my point is, and then he gets to talking about that, he's got a lot of influence where his, figures like, well-known revivalists and missionaries and stories of, and I'm trying to remember some of the names he mentioned. He mentioned it in the episode. But then the one that stood out was that he talked about a couple fictional ones, one being George Bailey of It's a Wonderful Life, which after the episode, I kept thinking about that when I listened to it as well, that just like, it's like, man, that is such a good example of just like a faithful guy, a true influencer, and a faithful leader, a man of his city. And there's something about George Bailey that's a very common thread throughout history, that the best leaders are the reluctant ones. George Bailey was reluctant. He really had a lot of dreams and visions to go and do different things, but yet he kept being drawn back to his city, and it's mainly because they needed him. And he got to see that part of his life in the story. Spoiler alert for an 80-year-old movie. But yeah, that he got to see his life when no one, of what it would look, his city, what it would look like if he didn't exist. And it's a lot of bad. Excuse me. And which is such a powerful impact, such a powerful story. There's a lot of great little one-liners. And I mentioned, and I just, like, I always think of that movie, no man is a failure who has friends. When we're in a relationship, helping other people as well as people helping us, the value of that, we're never a failure. So, stay tuned on that. I feel like there's more for me to unpack with old George Bailey. Grant definitely piqued my interest, and I just kept thinking of definitely a lot of high points in that movie, and that story that we can really connect with today. Minute 19, second 30. Talked about the courage. Really, he started a nonprofit when he was 20 years old with his friend, and it was a nonprofit to serve local ministries in Dallas, which is like, wow, really, really cool. He got to a couple stories about that later on. By minute 22, he talked about leaving college to really sow into this ministry, and it led to him actually being pulled from leadership on this ministry because the board members just didn't think it was right that he'd leave college in his degree. But was fascinating about just him. It's just very similar common thread with some of these guys I interview. If you want to go back to my Jeff Felton interview, just what is the value of college right now? There definitely is value, but there's just so many things we can learn about what we want to do, how we want to grow a career outside of college, and what we need to gain, what experience we need to have when it's, college can definitely add to it. It can definitely help those experiences, but at the end of the day, we need experience to really grow. And I think Grant, that's his story, that he just did not see the value in college and really wanted to go after and do things that help and serve people, and he didn't think he needed a college degree for that. So, he talked, and it didn't take too long after that he talked about minute 23, second 50, the gift of influence and convening power. Yeah, that's what, just admiring Grant from afar. We've had 2 conversations in our lives, but just admiring that he does have such influence. I think he's only 31, and convening power. He does bring people together. We talked a little bit about that off the interview, of just bringing the community, of bringing young leaders together. People in the same boat, in ministry, in business, in just life in general, and how to gather them together to really grow and feel a place of that belonging together. It's just so valuable. And he talked about, that he's really a God-given gift of how he gets to bring people together and speak in their lives. And, and then he gets to, this is all pre-25. A lot of this stuff is happening to him. This ball starts rolling. It's really cool. Because, when I met Grant, he was probably 28, maybe. And so he gets to minute 24, second 15. He talks about his first speaking event. So this is what's fascinating. It was like he helped put on an event for older leaders, and it was meant to I can't remember the actual what the event was around, what was the purpose of the event, but there was a lot of older leaders, boomers, and they realized last minute that they didn't have a speaker, a young person speaking at the event, and it was kind of for mentoring and all that. Anyway, you can go on the interview at minute 24 and hear that's talking, but it was just fascinating that he felt this conviction. Even he said it kind of went into arrogance to really almost kind of rip into them, and he kind of did, but he also felt the softening of his heart of really laying low and how to do it in a very purposeful way, in a very inviting way, and so. Anyway, but I think that's really led to where he's at now in his career, that event, because then he started consulting and doing other speaking events, and that's where I heard him, where he was a guest speaker on this really big speaking event that was kind of really neat, and he was probably one of the speakers that really stood out. His message was really good. He even did a Q&A. I think all of them did, but for some reason his Q&A stood out. Just because he had to answer really direct questions from a lot of business leaders here in the city. And he just was 2 feet planted, was very inviting, very helpful, but gave great responses. I was really, really impressed. And we kind of circled back and just really kind of off that speaking event, talking about the power of being discipled and mentored. A quote that he had, he said, "The best young people I know are discipled and mentored." And I think that's really, and he's not necessarily directing that at one specific young people or old people or successful. And not, he's kind of saying that towards both. It's the great young people are the ones who are mentor and disciple. So go mentor and disciple someone. But he's also speaking to young people. Stop hanging around, living in the echo chamber of just your people. You need older voices in your life, so go seek them out. honor them for who they are and not what they're not. I think that's really interesting when we talk about that. It's really hard for young people, is like we disagree with a portion of an older person, what they have to say or what they're about, and so therefore we just kind of throw it all out, versus valuing who they are and not about what they're not, and really kind of leaning into what they are and taking that values, taking stock on what they have to say. The older I get, the more I realize nuance can be your friend. The complexity of all human beings, we're all very complex beings, and just kind of understanding that, different backgrounds, and it's not all going to be 100% quality. We're not Jesus. As much as we are being shaped and molded into him, we aren't him. So not everybody's going to have 100% beautiful advice to give all the time, right? So, by minute 29, almost to minute 30, he kind of found his sweet spot in speaking to young people.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thrive Marriage Lab. If you want your marriage to thrive, this is a great opportunity to you, because strong marriages are the bedrock of strong churches, organization, families, and community. This is a 12-month pathway for any of you that are looking to really have weekly engagement with experienced marriage counselors. Not just one, but many. So go to restory.life/thrive to get on the waiting list for this great program that starts in April. That's restory.life/thrive. And make sure you put the word Forge in the promo code to receive a discount on your monthly fee. Now, back to the episode.
He just said, that's what he really comes alive in speaking and helping them. As much as he's kind of been that voice to older people of how to help to speak to young people, he said his sweet spot is young people. I think that's what he's doing with Q Ideas. And then he gets into, which is really great, is by minute 34, he talks about not wasting your single years and setting yourself up for your married years. Take advantage, people, and that's part of why I do what I do. When we're single, we got to take advantage. We can't waste those and wait around saying, well, I'll be better, feel better, do better when I'm married or I'm in my career, or whatever arrival mindset we have. And it's just not how it works. A biblical concept says, talks about in the Psalms, waiting on the Lord. Waiting on the Lord is actually a very active positioning posture that we have. Waiting on the Lord, actually, I think in the direct translation is almost like a crouching position, like an ambush. Like we're waiting on the Lord, waiting for that timing to come, and you got to be prepared. You can't waste those years. You got to be ready to be that husband, that father, that leader by doing the things now. And it's just, not sitting in it. And I think he gets on not being alone, not sitting in an echo chamber of just being with just your age group, just your friends. And really, that was a great theme as kind of an off of mentoring and discipleship. One of the things he said that he gets to is just like that I have quote in my posts on Instagram: young people who keep their word, they will totally advance past those who don't. And that was originally when I asked the question about where did he feel like he was someone that was very adamant about that. He said he couldn't really remember, but he talked about his first job at Marshall's and just the quality of work that he just felt like it was about him. And I think at the end of the day, finding that balance where it's like, man, I want to put out excellence for me because I'm a person of excellence. Not because I want to get a raise or impress somebody, or I'm waiting to see if someone's watching, or I'm trying to make people look bad. It's like at the end of the day, that's what I want to do. And it was interesting, he said at 16 that he felt like he was the minority of that, even with a lot of people he worked with who are older. So, oh man, that was a fun story by minute 42, talking about learning to speak publicly and authentically. it came in community. And so, just that was really cool. I mean, he took it from a quote from Tim Keller that it takes 1,000 sermons for someone to really be a good speaker. I think it's what the quote was, but it's so true. Like, you're not going to be good at public speaking the first time you do it or the 10th time. You gotta get reps. And they started doing that within their community of friends, and how they got feedback. And it was like the quality. He said it in 3 ways: the quality of the content, how it was delivered, and then authenticity or something, which is so true. I mean, I've been when I was at my ministry school, just like how many times I get up in front and I would just like want to convey somebody else I've heard, trying to sound like them, their presence, their voice cadence versus being me. But then a great quote that I actually reposted that was so good. 90% of the fear of public speaking has nothing to do with your ability to speak. It has everything to do with your concern of what other people think about you and your desire to impress. Such a great statement, because really, I've learned so much about myself, and I've grown so much by just standing in front of people. It can be very terrifying. It can be very revealing, insecure feeling. It also can be very exhilarating. It can be very, like when you get positive feedback and you do well, you're like, man, this is a powerful thing. I think that's in life with a lot of different things that can make you feel absolutely terrible or really powerful. It can kind of swing either way. You can find a lot about yourself. You can be humbled in a way that's really positive, but you also can take things and become really arrogant. But either way, it becomes a moment where you learn to actually find out who you are, and how you handle things, and find out what you're good at too. I mean, a great quote, he says, becoming confident in who you are and comfortable in who you are not. Man, like that, how many times we waste hours trying to be comfortable, trying to be confident in something we're not. That's just such a waste of time. We need to be comfortable and like, yeah, it's just not me. It's a very valuable thing. I love that in that person, but that's not me. Learning to put that down. I think a final question I really asked him was just what is something that has sustained him? What is one thing that he's really valued in his life that has brought him to where he's at? And he talked about the value for prayer and the intimacy with God. And he talked about a story of what prayer was like and God showing up in a big way in his ministry, and just kind of like pretty much a miracle. And he talked a little bit about what his prayer life looks like and what that is. And really a prayer life really is you're developing a history with God by speaking and communing and interacting with him. It's a beautiful thing. And I really, like Grant, you could feel the tenderness of his heart about it. That was really good. But overall, I mean, there was more I wish I kind of unpacked. I mean, with him there, we could have talked for 2 hours. I wish I kind of picked his brain more about the George Bailey thing. I kind of look at it because there was such gold there. There was a lot of high points though. From really starting his own ministry, talking about the value of discipleship, his first speaking engagement to, talking about the generational divide, and then learning how to speak, what that really was, getting reps in that, and then really his relationship with God. So, here are the questions I put in the show notes. Questions to ask yourself from the interview. Okay, number 1: what person younger than me am I actively helping? Giving time, advice, or access to network. Who is someone that you see maybe a little bit of yourself in? They can go, man, I'd really love to help them. I'd really love to, engage in them, really help them grow, discover more of who they are. or really just like, hang out with them, be a safe place for them, or even just give them access to things that they wouldn't have access outside of being in a relationship with you. It doesn't have to be this super, constant Obi-Wan Kenobi wisdom one-liners all the time. It could be just easy, something simple. Just, bring them, introduce them to people that could help them as well. So, number 2, how do I see Jesus as the model for leading, mentoring, and discipling others? I think this is good just because a lot of these points we've missed in the relational component of Jesus. Whether you're a Christian or not, I think there's a lot of leadership qualities we can learn from Jesus himself. Just the pacing, the temperament, the candor that he had, the wisdom, the speaking in parables to the direct things he would say, the seed planting. I mean, that's the thing is like most of these guys didn't get it until after everything went down. I mean, there's many times in the Bible he would say something that's like, they still didn't get it, That was my paraphrasing, but that's the Cartwright version. Then number 3, how have I taken advantage of my time as a single person? You could definitely even ask this as a married person. Yeah, what as a reflective thing, looking back, what did you do to prepare yourself for where you're at now? As a single person, what have you, I've been single for a long time. Very thankful. I am engaged. I'm excited. Next chapter of my life. Got an amazing woman that I get to marry. I'm just ready for that. But I was single for most of my adult life. Actually, pretty much all my adult life up until, this February. And so what have you taken advantage of? I think having the freedom as a single person, are you taking risk? Are you growing personally, relationally, developing skills? Are you getting advice from older people? Are you allowing input in your life outside of just your friend group? Are you are you going on adventures? Are you not waiting till you have a bunch of money? Because you don't need a lot of money right now to go do things that you want to do. I felt like in the last 5 years, I have gone on a lot of trips. I've traveled internationally. I took a job 10 years ago in Israel. That was crazy. I have gone on ski trips. I've been outdoors. I've been out west. I've picked up and left. I mean, it's just like I have gone places where I just really needed one thing. I needed to grow. So I went to a place called J Ranch, and I just said, I want to be here, and I'll be present. I need to grow. I don't need money. I don't need a large amount of income right now. I just need to be in a place where I feel known, and I need to grow. So that happened at 26. So, but number 4, what thing do I want to be great at that I can learn in community? I think that's just taking from his question of, or his, we talked about learning to speak and finding the safe place of community, but that this could be anything. Really in the community is like, you can learn about how to have healthy conflict, healthy confrontation. Like it's a safe place to learn that, or then you can use it in business, use it in marriage. But finding things to be really good at, in community. I think this podcast, I learned how to do that within community because all my first guests are a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I love their story. And so I want to share it. One thing I want to be great at that I can learn in community. So that can be a lot of different things. And then number 5, what do I value most for years where I have seen tangible fruit in my life? What is that one thing? He talked about prayer. What is that one thing in your life? Like, I held on to this and it has brought value, fruit, meaning to my life. I'm trying to think. That's probably a question I need to ask myself. But I think, just learning what is that one thing? I think that's a challenge for you, is really to think about what's the one thing that you want to start having that you know will bring fruit, that you really valued. Is it community? Is it family? Is it, is it having an entrepreneurial spirit? Is it taking risk? Is it, valuing something from an older generation? Is it, have you put your relationship with God first? It can be a litany of things. I just think, that's a great question to ask yourself to have. So, all right, I've babbled on for too long. So, thank you for listening. Check out mentorforge.com. Please subscribe where you get all the show notes every week. I email them directly to you, as well as some other content. So, thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.